Hi, I'm Jennifer Wood.
And I'm Jennifer Connor.
And you're listening to Equestrian B2B, the podcast that brings together industry leaders, entrepreneurs, and equestrians for conversations about how they build and sustain a successful business.
On today's show, we speak with Stacia Madden of Beacon Hill Show Stables about starting her business, coaching students to national championships, and changes she has seen in the equestrian industry.
Stacia Madden stands out as one of the most successful and dedicated trainers of young, developing show jumping talent in the United States. She was a top junior rider from Indiana, winning the 1987 ASPCA McClay Finals, and placed in both the AHSA Medal Finals and the USET Finals Talent Search East. After turning professional in 1988, she started training out of Beacon Hill Show Stables in North Salem, New York. In June of 1988, Beacon Hill relocated to Colts Neck, New Jersey.
As a professional rider, she was highly successful in both the hunter and jumper ring, showing top hunters to championships at the biggest shows in the country before shifting her concentration to the training aspect of the business. She has trained several of the most promising junior riders who have the potential to represent the United States at the highest levels of international competition.
So, hi, Stacia. Thanks so much for coming here today and talking to us about your business. I've always admired what you've built and the way that you work with your students, so I'm really excited to talk more about it today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So just to start, can you talk a little bit about, how you grew up riding and kind of, I know you had a really great junior career, but making that kind of transition from riding to coaching?
Sure. I'm originally from Indianapolis, Indiana, and I grew up riding at a stable called Grandview Stables, which was owned by the Renahens.
Oh, yeah.
Art and Sally Renahan had two daughters, Diane and Valerie, and I started taking up-down lessons there because my family had a house that was down the street from a good friend of mine who had a real farm, horses, pigs, goats, rabbits, all the things. And we used to go on pony rides, and I think it was my mother that said, you should probably learn how to properly ride a horse if you're going to spend so much time doing the pony rides and the sleigh rides and things like that. So that's how I ended up at Grandview, taking, my hour lesson on the Liberty horses and school horses. And when my mom and my dad knew it was a real passion, then I ended up having a pony as a birthday present. I think it was a $500 or $600 pony that had come into the school program that I bought, and her name was Angie, and she was a buckskin pony with three white socks, so I named her Three's Company because that was like my favorite TV show at the time. And I was always afraid to canter before I ended up having Angie, and then we started doing little horse shows, and then Val started being my coach more than Mrs. Renahan. And it turned into local shows to shows in the tri-state area, then some more national shows. And then in my last junior year, my parents said if I was really going to take riding to another level that I probably needed to train out on the East Coast. So that's how I ended up out on the East Coast from Indiana.
Wow. My family's from Indiana, too. I was born in Indiana and grew up, but
so you've got the Midwestern values also.
Oh, absolutely.
and
then there's a New Yorker.
Hoosier Nails on because I'm going to the Miami, Indiana game tonight at 7:30.
You're going to the game?
I am going to the game.
That's so exciting.
Good friend of mine over 30 years is a Miami alum, and we joked that if they ended up playing each other that we were going to go to the game. So he flew in last night, and we're going to the game.
Oh, that's cool.
That's awesome.
So fun.
4 of my family members went to IU.
Okay. I had a lot of family go there, too.
Yeah. We're a big Hoosier family. So when you kind of decided what you wanted to do and you went to the East Coast to show, did you know then that you wanted to be a professional?
I knew I was going to stay riding with horses. I had no intentions of owning a farm or a business. When I got to go to college and start thinking about going to college, all of my college choices were based around places that I was going to be able to ride. I applied to places in Virginia because it was close to Rodney Jenkins at the time, places in Florida because it was close to Christina Schlichmeyer and Bobby Braswell, Drew, Fordham, and Fairfield because it was close to Fairfield and the Leons at the time. Like, I had this whole sketch of how I was going to be able to keep riding because we didn't have the intercollegiate riding at the schools then. So it was a big transition from your last junior year to figuring out if you were going to stay in the horse world, how you're going to stay in the horse world.
Right.
And so my objective was to go to a school where I could keep riding.
Okay. Yeah, we went to the University of South Carolina together, so we were on the equestrian team and roommates, and it's amazing how much that has grown.
Yeah.
Even just since we were in college. I mean, that was a long time ago too, but it's such a
really good
special program.
Now. It makes it so much easier for the kids to be able to make that transition.
Mm-hmm. And so from there, how did you kind of transition into coaching, and was it hard for you to do that?
So I started working for Beacon Hill in 1988, I think.
Okay.
I was just asked to be able to help out in Florida that year. And I stayed on and started doing some professional riding. And I was only coaching in Florida that year because there was extra need for coaching just during the Florida circuit. And my plan was to just attend school and ride on the weekends and stay involved, somehow. And it just never really changed. I was on board at Beacon Hill as a professional rider, and then it turned into doing some teaching, but I would not say I was by any means the lead instructor. I was kind of a distant assistant at the time. Yeah. And then there was a few years when, not even a few years, it was probably just a year where I ended up going to work for Johnny Barker in North Carolina or South Carolina. I think it was North Carolina. I can't remember what Carolina he lives in. Yeah. Greensboro, North Carolina, I think. And then I ended up coming back to work at Beacon Hill, and I think that's when it became more of feeling like a business and more of a full-time commitment at that point.
Yeah. And when you started doing that, was it already a big program, or did you scale the business over time? Did you have small clientele? What did that look like?
Well, when I came back to Beacon Hill, I would say it was very small at that point. I remember going to horses in a tourist trailer. I think the barn on Montrose Barn that was leased at the time was a 21-stall barn, and trying to figure out how to pay the bills. So we leased some stalls out to some dressage riders for like rough board. So I think it was, at that particular time in my life when I came back to work there, it was not a big operation.
Yeah. And it's, I think over the years it really grew into something like a giant program with riders competing for national championships and winning the equitation finals. And you were on the Animal Planet TV show. Right. Yeah. Road to the Maclay. But when you went on your own for Beacon Hill and started that business, how did it feel? Like, was it scary taking that leap to say, I'm doing this on my own?
Terrifying.
Yeah.
But I didn't really have time to think about it. It was just a choice, saying that I want to go forward. I want to maintain all the customers that had put their faith in the program, wanted all the employees to be able to keep working in a job that they seemed to like. So it was more of a focus and a decision, and kind of putting blinders on and just having your goal to put one foot in front of the other and figure it out along the way.
Right. And did you build the barn that you're in now?
So Montrose was a barn that we leased, Beacon Hill leased from probably 1988 to 96. The farm on Laird Road, which is where I currently am, had a 10-stall barn on it and a house, and that was bought, I think, in November of 96, and moved in after we built the remaining stalls, the office, the indoor, the rest of the paddocks, the outdoor ring, all of that in early 1997.
Okay. It's a beautiful place.
It's really, it's a really unique piece of property. It's 21 acres, and it's right in the middle of Colts Neck, and all the surrounding properties are not built on, like they're vacant land. There's a stream that runs behind the property to make it so that there's a real buffer between any of the other properties. So no matter where you stand on the property, you really can't see another house or a building or anything like that. So
That's nice.
it's really nice and quiet for the horses, and it's really centrally located for all the shows that we go to.
Right.
You know, it's really easy to get to Newark Airport. It's easy to drive and get to the Turnpike or get to the Parkway. You're close to Philadelphia. You're close to Washington. You're close to New York City.
Yeah.
Trains are nearby. Like, it's very, very easy to get around.
That's great. I'm sure that makes a big difference when you have students from all over coming to work with you.
I think that's one of the biggest reasons that it ended up being a facility where people felt like they could train and not live within a 30 or 40 minute proximity.
Yeah.
Was one, I wanted it to be accessible for anybody who wanted to come that felt like they were a good fit. And we kind of have organized it so that people can stay nearby, stay with staff members, stay with other clients that do live nearby. And I think the accessibility factor is a big part of what made that happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not having to drive to Long Island. Because I know Jersey traffic is bad, but man, that traffic going out to Long Island is horrendous.
The beautiful thing about where we are in New Jersey is we seem to always be going opposite the traffic.
Yeah.
So when we're leaving for a show, we're going against the shore traffic, and when we're coming home, the shore traffic is usually going the other way.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you don't ever get stuck in it, but for the most part, it's going the opposite way.
Yeah. What's the hardest part of running such a large operation?
I mean, when you're taking care of animals, it's really, you've got to have staff that you completely entrust, and then it's 24/7. There's no real time off. So you've got to be able to build a group of caretakers that have the passion to really care for the animals properly. And then you've got to have a big enough staff that you can rotate the staff some so that people can have their personal time and vacations and things like that. If your staff is too small, I feel like you're probably not going to be able to have that luxury of rotating the staff and letting them have, some sort of life outside the horses.
I think that's what a lot of other business owners, they don't have that component of the horses, right? It's the same thing in other sports as well. Like, they have a ball and a bat and themselves, right? And we have us, but then we have this whole other creature with their whole other brain and do what they want. So yeah, that's definitely makes it tough. How many people do you manage?
I mean, it really varies depending on how many horses we have. The business has grown and is quite large, and I have found that what makes it able to really function seamlessly is having enough staff. So when you look at the staff that I have, you probably think that I have more horses than we really do, thinking, 80, 90, 100 horses sometimes, but I don't think we've ever hit those kind of numbers. But I'm proud of the fact that we're able to cover a lot of territory. I can be at Young Riders another week. Somebody could be in Kentucky and somebody else could be home doing, the Princeton local horse shows. Or, we can even conquer being at a couple different finals at once. There was one year when we won the Washington Equitation Finals, the same year that we won the 3-3 Hamel finals. And, then sometimes we have somebody doing ponies in Washington. So we're able to cover a lot of territory, which I think is also really important.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as far as positions in your business, you have other trainers, but do you have support staff too, besides grooms, like to do your bookkeeping and things like that?
In the beginning, I did all of the bookkeeping and managed everything.
Wow.
When I started taking on the business 100%, I found that tricky to be able to do and dedicate enough time to the training and to the business end of it. And I think that's when I started to transition from not riding so much, doing more of the teaching. At that point, I ended up bringing in some staff that could help me with the bookkeeping part, and ended up being a customer that had kids that rode, that wanted to figure out a way to get their kids to ride. It was going to be a financial struggle at the time. I was going through trying to figure out how to give up the bookkeeping end of it and not sure really how to do it. And I remember just saying one day when she came to me and said, how can we get my daughter riding? It's really important to her. It's like part of her lifeline. And I just said, how are you with QuickBooks? And the answer was, I used to work at an accounting firm. Pretty
wow.
good. And we've had a really good partnership ever since.
Oh, that's amazing. I know you've had really long-term relationships with people who work for you, especially Krista.
Yep.
And can you talk a little bit about kind of keeping those relationships, really between boss and employee, but now, at this point, she trains so many
Yep.
as well. So how do those relationships, change and get stronger?
The particular relationships with the assistants that I had at the time when I decided to take the business on were Krista Freundlich and Heather Senya.
Mm-hmm.
And I think their unwavering support and their passion for the industry, but also their allegiance to something that they believed in, was part of why we were able to make that transition and make it pretty seamless. And then it started to really build after that. And I had a lot of good support system at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Max and Maya was a big influence at that time. John and Beezy were super beneficial as far as support system and being there when I needed to ask questions and needed extra support. So I think just allowing people to feel comfortable, letting them feel heard, giving them enough responsibility that they've got a little skin in the game.
Mm.
And I think now I've got close to 5 assistants and a barn manager, got a groundskeeper at home that's been with me for 25 years or so. And they all have enough responsibility that the place can run itself when I'm away.
Mm-hmm.
And I think everybody's comfortable with that, and I'm comfortable with that. And I think it's because of the overlapping duties that so many people are able to wear different hats.
Mm.
A lot of places have job titles, and
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think that we're a facility that has a lot of titles. There's the caretakers of the horses, there's my barn manager, grounds guy, and all my assistants. And I don't think there's a lot of specifying within those titles. There's not any micromanaging going on.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody can do everything. Everybody can barn manage. Everybody can drive the 2-horse trailer. Everybody can close out at the office. Everybody can do entries. Everybody can ride, teach, show. For sure, there's some branching out of what everybody's extra tasks are. Like Krista handles the entries and the office at the horse shows, and Heather, and one of my ex-barn managers, handles all of our payroll and staffing. And then I've got, Lydia, who handles putting things in our barn manager program. And, Katie Bremen works with the vets primarily and the blacksmith when they're there. And Katie Canner is really good at organizing and ordering things and keeping tabs on making sure that everything arrives on time. And Lydia likes doing the medication reports when they need to be filed. And Abby just follows up on everything. And it's just nice to know that if we need to split up and go to 3 different horse shows, that you're not needing to give somebody a crash course in how to close out at the office or how to do medication reports. And I think that's probably, if you ask any of the staff members what they like about working there, I think it's that they feel like they have a lot of flexibility, a lot of latitude, but they also have a tremendous amount of responsibility.
And ownership, it sounds like, over what they do.
Yep.
And I think that makes employees want to do more when they have ownership over their jobs. The
pride factor really comes out because they feel like they're a really big part of it. It was just Abby the other day at the ring talking about, I don't remember why she said it. She was talking to somebody else about maybe working at Beacon Hill or the difference of one of her friend's jobs. But she said, everybody's always heard. It doesn't mean it's the final decision. And she's, she's been there for several years now, but she's one of the newer additions to the group. And to hear her take on that, I was like, yeah, that's accurate.
Yeah. That's amazing. So what kind of advice would you give somebody that's starting their business?
Advice, you've got to really be passionate about it because it's hard. And it's got a lot of ups and downs. I didn't have the advantage of working at a lot of different places to bring information from. It was a lot of intuition and keeping my eyes open and my mouth closed and trying to get a lot of experiences. So I would say really trying to watch and learn. That was probably big for me. I don't know how people could do it without being passionate and just wanting to wake up every day and see what swings are coming at you. But I think you have to really surround yourself with very similar, like-minded people and people that are even better than you in some respect.
Yeah.
And then give them their space. Like the vets always have their space to do what they are so good at. And our blacksmith, I give him the space to do what he's so good at. And I would say really trying to tie yourself to good other professionals and vendors in the industry and then rely on them.
And what do you look for in the athletes that you work with, your students, if someone says they want to join your program?
I think there's a lot of myths about whether you can ride at Beacon Hill or not. It's you have to go to Florida, or you have to have 2 or 3 horses, or you have to ride in the jumpers, or you have to have an equitation horse, or none of it is really true. It's really just kind of a fit, I think. And the fit is you want to be here for the right reasons. You want to be coached. You want to have passion for the sport, and you want to honor your horse. And we just don't get a lot of people that come through the door that don't have those check marks, because I think that maybe they know they're not a fit. If they're just using riding as a placeholder or to fill some time, they usually don't end up being a good fit. Or if it's somebody that needs like real one-on-one coaching, I'm not saying that we don't take each personality separate and try to work with them the best of our ability, but if you want what my group has to offer, then we're a good fit.
Yeah.
I was going to say it's no secret that you have riders that compete at the national level and win. So what do you think makes you so good at coaching young athletes like that to national championships?
Not focusing on winning.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's really true. Pressure really comes from not being prepared. So if you are diligent about your preparation, and I think my team and myself as a coach really prioritize that, then the riders feel less pressure because they feel more prepared. You're really at these championships just presenting what you've been working all year for. So we're not putting a big emphasis on results. There's a line that I use that when you ride at Beacon Hill, you're not here to put ribbons on the tack room. It's really not about the results usually. It's about achieving whatever we're working on at that moment, whether if it's in the jumper ring you're working on being under the time allowed. I might be happy that you had 2 fences down, but you were well under the time allowed for 2 or 3 classes in a row.
Right.
Or if we're working on striding in the equitation, maybe you've made some distance errors, but you got your striding right for a few classes in a row. And I think the idea of trying to teach riders to be competitive and understand the process of the ups and downs is what ends up delivering riders that can win and be mentally prepared for those championships, because it's really about preparation.
Mm-hmm. I was watching part of a podcast earlier and with a trainer, and he had a customer who told him that he was in the business of like keeping customers happy. And he said, "No, I'm not. I'm in the business of making sure your horse is healthy and happy and knows that they're, and then I'm in the business of teaching you how to work well with your horse." And it was kind of like do you call them clients or students? And
Right.
I just thought that it was an interesting thing to look at and say, I kind of think it's both, right? I mean,
For sure.
There's doing enough to make people happy and know that they're learning, and obviously the horse is the first priority.
Yep.
How do you balance, keeping students happy and teaching them the right and wrong or good and bad of being a horse person?
I mean, I think the fundamentals of really understanding that not everybody wins. Like, there's only one winner.
Yeah.
And you've got to have goals that are really pertinent to your level of riding. And of course you've got to deliver. I mean, you can't, my advertising usually is showing up at these finals well prepared, whether it's junior hunter finals, whether it's indoors, whether we're doing a summer finals, whether it's young riders, whether I'm sending riders to Europe on the young riders team. You need to be prepared. And I think it all goes back, yes, you'll make everybody happy if you know the rules, first of all. You can't show up someplace and not know that there's going to be the open water and you're on a horse that doesn't jump the water well. New customers showed up, asked if they would be able to show in the wet class that goes week 5 of Wellington when we travel to Ocala. And they needed to have a little understanding that that was something you needed to qualify for, and they hadn't been to any of the qualifying shows because they were a new customer. And so it's a lot of education.
Yeah.
And I remember I knew all those rules, but I think it came from being in Indiana, and part of the association was you had to take the practical, you had to take the written test. And I think it's so much easier for kids to have access to the rules now, have access to the prize list, but it's not followed up on because so much is done because the coaches are really trying to keep the customers happy, but maybe there's a little bit maybe lost in the education process along the way.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's easy. It's hard for my staff to even keep up on the rules and the changing of the times. So
for sure.
It's not an easy process for sure.
Yeah. But even just the effort for students to put in and try and educate themselves is...
My favorite thing is if a student asked a good question about either strategy on why they're showing in certain classes, or if they have input about trying to obtain one of their goals, and they'll bring up either a rule or scheduling reason during the year that they want to talk about. It shows that they're all in and that they're driven, and there's so much more to the time that when you're on the horse. And you can be preparing yourself by coming up with a good travel schedule, and preparing yourself by knowing what your cross-entry restrictions are, what you can and can't do. You're ahead of the game.
Yeah.
I just wanted to go back to something you said before about pressure. Do you think that you handled pressure differently as a coach than you did as a rider, or did the pressure from being a rider teach you how to handle it?
I think if I still rode a lot, I would be a better rider with the life lessons that I've learned as I've grown up. I think I've always dealt with pressure well. I've always been super hyper-focused. And I think that's probably a really key part of the success, is being able to deliver that message to the riders and have them understand that it's not a God gift that you either deal with pressure or you don't. Pressure is adrenaline. It's you being excited about an event. And if you go to an event and you're excited and you feel prepared, you're perhaps excited to go and do well. If you have adrenaline and you go to an event and you don't feel prepared, that's when the anxiety sneaks in.
Yeah.
So we're not always preparing on the horse. We started a couple years ago doing these Tuesday clinics here in Florida. And basically I was just saying to myself, I'm surrounded by all this extra knowledge and everybody's in one place. And I know the kids need to keep up with their school, but so many of them had dedicated their mornings or their morning to afternoons to riding. And if you've got one horse, maybe you're lucky to have two horses, how do I fill the balance of that time so they're getting more out of their time that they've locked into being 4 months down here in Wellington? So it started out bringing other instructors in and trying to have my students exposed to that. And then lately I've been keeping my eyes open to broader ideas. We had judges come in and talk about what it was like to judge these classes so that the riders could have a better understanding of what judges are looking for. We've done some social media training with the kids. We recently just had Carly Anthony come in and demonstrate how to do the flat patterns at school. Then I had one of the coaches from a school come in that's working for me for this winter, talk to the kids about the college process. And we're going to be talking to Nick Gannon about course setting, and he's going to let the kids come up to the Denemethy ring, I think, while we're going to talk about course setting.
That's cool.
So I think when you have all those, I don't want to even call them distractions, but when you're not hyper-focused again on the results and you're just feeding them with different information from all aspects of the industry, just kind of by osmosis, they're picking it up.
Right. Yeah, and that's, like I said, part of being a well-rounded horse person, right?
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Yes, you're teaching people how to ride and the wins come along the way, but you really want to teach people how to take care of horses and how to be good with them and know everything that
And
goes
teaching
around
them that a loss isn't a loss.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the biggest thing is that if you can go into the ring and maybe you don't even get a ribbon, but you were hyper-focused on something that is going to help you going forward every time you go in the ring, those are lessons that really make you very comfortable. You're not beating yourself up about the fact that the results aren't what you wanted, and then those results end up happening because you were patient.
Mm-hmm. And consistent, right?
Yeah.
Building that consistency. I know, like it's kind of, I look at it working out in the gym, right? My trainer like tricks me sometimes into like doing a heavier weight, but we'll like build up and I'm not thinking about it. I'm just doing the work.
The
And all of a sudden,
yeah.
And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, here I am. I'm deadlifting 200. Now I'm deadlifting 215. And, and you get there, but it's,
for sure,
the consistency of it. So,
Do you have a coaching philosophy, or is it kind of what we've already talked about?
Coaching philosophy it's for sure, I think if you had to tag it, I think my philosophy is not concentrating on the results. And it's very difficult for me when I have a parent that only understands results.
Right.
Because I know we're going to end up getting there, but it's not instant gratification. And I think that usually ends up being a setback. I mean, you've just seen time and time again when the kids need that win to get qualified for week 11, or they need the consistency of both phases of the Washington, or they need that 4-fault round and to jump the water to be able to get their certificate for young riders. When you've got those lines in the sand that you need to accomplish, you can take these very talented riders and see them struggle. And so we're usually not talking about those goals. I'll say, if we get qualified week 11, I want to back the schedule up and make sure we're showing the right weeks. But we're not usually trying to be hyper-focused on trying to get qualified for something so strong that we lose sight of how to get there and beat ourselves up over it.
Right. And you probably set some goals for your students to reach, that don't have to do with results, but for yourself personally, do you set goals for your business?
They're not goals per se, as I know people are against change normally, and I'm always open to change. And I'm hyper-focused to the point that I'm pretty good at not listening to the noise. And if I feel strongly, I've been blessed with my intuition being kind to me. So I listen to it. And if I feel strongly about doing something that I know people maybe, if I ask their opinion, wouldn't like, I'm not afraid to just make the change. And I think one of the recent changes, well, semi-recent changes, is we're extremely organized, but everything was in binders. I mean, we had binders of binders. We had the vet binder, we had the chiropractor binder, we had the farrier binder, we had the points binder. And we were using an entry system where we could do our entries before entries were all online. And I just kept saying, I wish there was a barn management program that we could switch to. And a good friend, when she started Barn Manager, was really, really open to ideas that I had that would make Barn Manager friendly for my particular operation. And when I felt comfortable that it had what I was looking for, I just told one of my staff members, Katie, who is very, very good with computers and very diligent at just seeing a project through. I said, I need all of this information inputted, because the biggest struggle was going to be that first step of getting there.
Yeah.
I knew it was going to be a lot easier to teach everybody how to use it once it was up and running.
Yeah.
And I tested the audience to say, wouldn't it be easier if we had everything on computer? No, it's gonna be too hard to learn. It's gonna be too much to change. And now we can be at the ring on the walkie-talkie, and one of the vets will call and say, when was the last time you changed the shoes on such and such, or when was the last time they got looked at? And they're able to pull it up on their phone. We can be anywhere, and any one of my staff members can do that.
Yeah.
I wish you were at our event yesterday to answer the question on how to make employees more comfortable with change, especially in technology, because that was a question we asked and nobody answered it. But this is a great answer. Just make the change.
Yeah.
If you go through my phone, every time I'm traveling anywhere, I'm always taking pictures of things that I see that I think are either jog an idea that I've had to make it better to the point that I can actually turn it into an idea, some sort of improvement to my operation, my business, the way I run things. And I am just not afraid to, even when I'm something silly like skiing, if I'll be on a ski trip and I'll see something that looks like it makes sense, or I hired a ski instructor for a day and they said something in their teaching that made sense to me, I'm bringing it home and using it.
Yeah. Do you look a lot to outside sports or follow sports and what they do, whether it's like conditioning or technology, and see how it could help you?
I'm always watching the behind the scenes of everything.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite time of year is during the Olympics.
Yeah.
I don't actually watch the events as much as I want to hear the backstories.
Yeah.
I think I learn a lot. I definitely follow a lot of coaching. Not so much that I always take things away from the coaches, but I understand that I'm following a lot of the same principles by nature.
Yeah.
And it gives me confidence to stay on the same track.
Right. Reaffirms what you're doing.
I love to watch all of the behind the scenes stuff too. And I'm fascinated with athletes and watching their documentaries on, how they got to the level. And sometimes there's something in there that there's like a little nugget and you're like, oh my gosh, I can apply that. I could use that, or that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually full of struggles, full of ups and downs, full of heartache. But most of all, the underlying is the perseverance.
Right.
Yes.
And I think that's what the kids today really, if they come to the table and they have that natural grit and perseverance, you just recognize that from the get-go, and you know that nothing's going to get in their way.
What's the hardest part about coaching young athletes?
Having their understanding of hard work match what my understanding of hard work is. And
fair.
Me equally being understanding of the new challenges that social media bring to the table, that school brings to the table, that social obligations bring to the table. They're not able to come care for a horse with the way these horses need to be as athletes, with the poulticing, the icing, the laser, the magnetic blanket, the turnout, the getting out a couple times a day. A kid probably couldn't really honestly manage that full time and be the student that they need and want to be.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not taking away from them that they should be taking their school time away to be able to do this. But I think that the industry has gotten so complex, and the athletes are so, I mean, the horses are cared for in such a different way than when I was growing up.
Yeah.
It's not that the kids aren't capable of the care. Of course they're capable.
Yeah.
The time restraints in, family obligations and school and the other things that they need to devote enough time to, would probably be very difficult.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I look at what horses go through now to be, showing it indoors versus what I did with my horse. I groomed by myself.
Yeah.
I took my horse to Harrisburg and Washington.
I went in the tourist trailer with mine.
Right.
Braided, all the things.
Yeah. And I don't think really, I wasn't winning, but I don't think I could do what the horses require these days.
Body clipping was the biggest thing that I had to conquer when I was taking care of my own horse, and I'm trying to solve right now why we have all the skin issues with the horses, and all the spur rubs and all the boot rubs, and I really think that it has a lot to do with the fact that they have different coats now, because our horses are getting clipped.
Yeah.
Probably, if I had to venture a guess, and I haven't even really done a deep dive into it yet, but I'm guessing they're getting body clipped 20 times a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
That definitely would leave their skin open to more.
I was body clipping my horse once.
Right.
Yeah.
So, there's been a lot of big changes. Picking the horse's feet was like taking great care of them back when I was... You brushed them, you curried them, you took care of them that way, but they weren't having and maybe I just didn't grow up knowing that was available, but I think it's just changed a lot.
It
Yeah.
has.
And the advances in technology.
My parents trained standardbreds, and so they even struggle making their grooms and implementing all the things that need to be done on their horses based on the schedule, right? So in standardbreds, they're there in the morning, not early like the thoroughbreds, but then there's a break and then they race at night. So getting the staff to want to put the Magna Wave on, or, stand them on the shaky board, or do any of that. All the therapies is because it does. It's very time consuming. It's changed a lot from just rubbing a leg and wrapping.
Yep. And I think the kids, when they spend... I think it's really funny when they arrive at a show before the tractor trailer arrives, because so many times they arrive and the tack room is set up, the horses' stalls are set up, the stall and a halves are set up, whatever needs to be done. And it's meticulous, and it never looks like there's that much equipment.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody would ever think about what it looks like when the tractor trailer is getting loaded or unloaded. And I remember the first time that I arrived at Beacon Hill as a junior rider to a horse show early, because I was traveling from Indiana, and saw a tractor trailer get unloaded, because I always went to the horse show in either a 6-horse gooseneck, or the 2-horse trailer. I'd never really even seen tractor trailers.
Yeah.
And seeing what it was like, and then to set all that stuff up and then tear it all down. It is a real sight sometimes, and I think it's a real appreciation when the kids and the parents get to see that for the first time.
Yeah.
Or you're the kid that has to do that because your parents can't afford it, and that's part of helping pay for it.
Yeah. It's a lot.
And what are some other big changes in the industry that you've seen throughout your years in teaching, and how have they affected your business?
I think the biggest change is the fact that the kids really learn best when the horses don't get sideways. And what I mean by that is horses just take after their riders. And if the rider, any rider, even a top rider, has ridden a particular horse for too long, you're not sure which starts to happen first, whether the rider's got bad habits or whether the horse is being difficult, there is a lot more interaction from professionals and a lot more that they can learn by riding a student's horse now and again. And I think by doing that, it keeps the horse from getting confused or sideways is the word that I used. And I think if you can prevent the horse from getting sideways, the rider learns quicker. And I think that also a horse always brings a rider along. So if you can put a rider and overmount them just a touch, a horse that they can grow into, a horse that's got a little bit more capabilities than they do at that moment, the horse can be a really wonderful assistant and a teacher for you.
Yeah, you can learn how to push the right buttons and you get a response to it on the horse. And then you learn how to do it if the horse knows how to do it and what you're asking for.
Sure.
And when you ask it right, it's a reward for asking the right way.
So I think that probably the way my business has changed is I've got more assistants because there's a couple more needs. I want to be able to divide and conquer. I want to be able to cover more territory. I want to be able to be at different horse shows and be really well represented. And in being able to do that, at any time, I can either get on or have one of my professional assistants get on and say, do you like this bit? Can you feel what the horse is doing when it comes off the turn? And then I can immediately take that information and help the rider with it. And I would say 15, 20 years ago, the riders, you were just trying your best to just coach them through it.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm not saying one's better or worse, but that's the trend, at least in my business right now, that seems to be working. And the horses they're valuable and they're obviously a big, big part of the equation. So you're trying to protect their confidence. You're trying to protect their integrity.
Yeah.
And you've got to make sure that you're doing that all the while trying to give your student as much saddle time as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see your business in 10 years?
I would like nothing more than for the business to stay intact. I feel like there's a lot of different age ranges in my assistants and in my professional staff. So whether they end up taking more of the reins through the years and maybe I don't have to be as present, but still be relevant. I like to judge. I don't want to make judging like a career path. I like clinics, but I don't want clinics to be a full-time career path. So I would hope that maybe the assistants want to stick with it and I can do more judging, more more clinics. That would probably be what I joke about the 5-year plan with all my friends and vendors that are either older than me or my age, and a lot of them are already retired and doing different things, and they're like, well, you're the one that talked to me about the 5-year plan and you're still going, so what's your 5-year plan? And I don't know, it's been hard to say because I own my own farm.
Right. Yeah.
I enjoy it. I'm passionate about it. I'm getting to spend time with my family enough so I don't feel like the business is pulling me away from that at the moment.
That's great.
So it's hard to say.
Yeah. And so at the end of each episode, we ask the same 4 questions to our guests, and Connor starts with the first.
What is your unfair advantage over others?
Probably the fact that it's pretty hard to disturb my being even. I tend to be very, very calm in very high stress situations. So since there's a lot of pressure involved with competing at the top level, I would say probably being very, very steady, very calm, and by nature super hyper focused is probably a really big advantage of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And also I have to say that having the unbelievable support team, I mean, you just can't beat that.
Right.
I think that's a huge advantage.
But it's something that you've cultivated, right? I mean, you've got great people, but you have to keep those people.
Whether it was a vision or whether it just happened naturally, I can't really say. But it's a real pleasure to be around people that share your vision, that's for sure.
Right. This is not one of the questions, but what's your sign?
I'm on the cusp of Virgo and Libra.
Okay.
Probably could have guessed that.
Yep. And what's something worth fighting for, and what's something worth giving up?
I will always fight for the horse. I will always fight for the rider, and I will give up money to be able to do that.
That's great. What's been your favorite age so far?
I think the age that I've been the most happy with myself has probably been my 40 to 50 range. I think the 20s were amazing just because you didn't have that much stress in your life at that point. It was fun. I wouldn't want to go back to my 20s in this day and age.
Right.
No.
So I'm pretty happy that I grew up when I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking forward to the future too. I don't really have many regrets, which is nice.
Yeah.
What was the last thing that took your breath away?
I mean, there's different kinds of breath away. There's like being in Antarctica where I was there, which is like the size of the United States, and seeing it be completely uninhabited by people.
Yeah.
And the magnitude of that.
Yeah.
That was a real eye-opening experience. And there were some of those days that you could just sit there and take it all in and understand that I'm able to be here, and I wish every human being was able to experience this.
Yeah.
There's those kind of experiences. I think one of the last times I was really left really speechless and in the moment was WEC, the first year that we went for the Equitation Championship. And my mom had been very sick, and I had to fly home on Sunday night. And the Equitation Championship was going to be that following, I think it went on a Sunday then. It went on a Saturday. It was Saturday night. And she ended up passing away on Wednesday, and my staff was already at WEC Ocala and organized, and it was our first year there. It was new surroundings for everybody. We had a good group of riders. I didn't get to arrive until Friday, and there was huge thunderstorms in the air, and they weren't sure if the class was going to be able to go inside or outside. They kept saying, I'm not sure. They finally decided to leave it outside. And Dominic Gibbs didn't start off on top. I think we were 4th or 5th after the first round and moved up a little after the flat, and then had an outstanding second round. And you just saw the weather like pulling in, and nobody was sure what was going to happen. We were out on walking out to the ring for them to do the presentation. He ends up winning. They stand us up on the podium, and at that moment, the skies opened up, and we're just absolutely drenched. And I remember him saying, this is our champagne parade.
Oh,
And I just remember being like, this is a lot.
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a powerful weekend. So
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
And thanks for coming and talking to us. And
Thank you for having me.
yeah, it was really interesting to learn. And I think people will take a lot away from listening to it. So thanks again.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you. That was a great conversation for
Yeah.
our first in-person, live in-person podcast.
I
That was
agree.
amazing.
Yeah. I've always admired Stacia, and I've seen her at all the big shows, training kids. And like she said, she's always even. You never hear her or see her screaming at a kid, right? And she's been in lots of press conferences as a trainer that I've led, talking about her kids and why they win. And it's just cool to hear more about her business and how she's grown it and really set the tone for it.
Yeah. I think that evenness probably is what makes her so good at business too, and running her business. And I really liked her talking about the pressure part of things and how she focuses not on the results, but on getting there, the steps. And I think so many times people want to skip the steps to get to the end. And then, there is pressure and anxiety that comes along with it.
Yeah.
So that preparing is such a key to it. And I like how she really brought up that point and kind of hit it home.
And I love that we were able to sit right next to her and be able to do this in person and see, her thoughts and you could see her thinking about the answers and how she can explain what she does. A lot of people can't explain why they're successful.
Right.
And I thought she was able to do that really easily and really drive home the important points and the philosophy of her business.
Yeah, and how she gives so much credit to her staff. And when she was talking about that and how everybody can kind of do everything, but they also have ownership over certain parts of the business and their job, I mean, that makes for a really strong team and a really great support system. And I think that's such a key in business as well, that sometimes we all try and do too much ourselves.
Yeah.
And then that's when you get those overwhelmed feelings and burnout. And so, having great partners like I have with you and I have with Chelsea and my other business and just a good support team in general makes a big difference.
Yeah. We always talk about how important it is to delegate, and I think she's learned how to do that really well. And really, it's the only way you can do it when you have an operation that big at this level.
Right, and to be able to continue it forward. And when she was talking about her 5-year plan and joking about that, I was like, I have a tomorrow plan, maybe, like a 5-year plan. I would love to have one. But I think that, her ability to kind of have an idea of, okay, well, I like to judge and I like to do clinics. And so, like, maybe because she does have this great base of a team to be able to step back and do some of those things instead. I think that's great that she's be able to create that, because I don't think a lot of horse people, trainers especially, or riders think ahead to when, a retirement strategy or, what they're going to do to slow down in this industry.
And when they can't physically do it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're friends on Facebook, so, I see that she actually does go on vacations.
Yes.
And she visits her family and spends a lot of time with them, so that is great to see that somebody at that level still, appreciates some balance and finding time for other things outside of going to horse shows.
Yeah, definitely. And then I have to say, she really got me with that last story.
I know.
And the champagne. I was like, I'm going to cry on TV, like on video right now. Like,
yeah, same. So. I just, when anyone talks about losing their mom, it always gets me, because it's such a difficult thing to happen. But I loved that, she went through probably one of the worst weeks of her life and then was able to have an experience like that.
Yeah.
It's so special.
And to have a young athlete that's the one who said it too.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
that was amazing, and it was a great way to close out the podcast.
Right.
And anybody who's listening or watching, you can find the links to today's guests at www.eqbusinesswomen.com.
And you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook. And be sure to like and subscribe and leave us a review. Thanks for listening and watching.